It is done. The man you called innocent is dead. You signed the order. You washed your hands. And none of it, not the water, not the words, not the ritual, made the weight go away. You are Pontius Pilate, and now you have to live with what you did. Here is what the historical record tells us about what happened to you after the crucifixion. For several years, nothing changes outwardly. You remain governor of Judea. You continue to manage the province, the same tensions, the same conflicts, the same fragile balance between Roman power and Jewish faith. But in the year 36 AD, roughly 6 years after the crucifixion, something happens that ends your career. A large group of Samaritans, led by a man promising to reveal ancient buried treasures on Mount Gerizim, gather in the thousands. You see it as a potential uprising. You send your cavalry and heavily armed infantry to intercept them. Many are killed. Many more are captured and executed. The Samaritan leaders make a formal complaint to Vitellius, the Roman governor of Syria, your superior. Vitellius investigates. And then he does something you had perhaps always feared. He orders you to return to Rome and answer to the emperor for your conduct. Just like that, your time in Judea is over. You make the long journey to Rome. But when you arrive, Emperor Tiberius, the man you had spent 10 years trying to please, trying not to anger, trying to survive under, is dead. He dies while you are still traveling. And with Tiberius gone, whatever charges were brought against you are lost to history. We do not know what happened in that Roman courtroom. This is where history goes quiet on you. The historical record simply stops, and into that silence, different traditions pour in with radically different answers. The historian Eusebius, writing in the 4th century, says you were exiled to Gaul, modern-day France, and eventually took your own life, driven by calamity after calamity that followed you. Some traditions say you were executed. Others say you simply vanished into obscurity and old age. But here is something remarkable. In the Ethiopian Orthodox Church and the Coptic Church, two of the oldest Christian traditions in the world, you are venerated as a saint. Your feast day is June 25th in the Ethiopian calendar. The reasoning is this. You tried to release Jesus. You declared him innocent 3 times. You washed your hands.
And tradition says that you and your wife Claudia Procula eventually converted to Christianity. Now we come to the question that this entire series has been building toward. What if you had said yes? What if, in that courtyard, surrounded by screaming priests and a manipulated crowd, you had looked at the man you privately believed was innocent and released him? Let us think about this carefully, because the answer is more complicated and more devastating than it might first appear. If Jesus is released, the immediate crisis is over for you. But is it over for Jesus? The chief priests have already tried multiple times to arrest or discredit him. If he walks out of that courtroom alive, they will try again. There are other Passovers. There are other opportunities for confrontation. His ministry continues, perhaps stronger than before because he survived. Perhaps weaker, because without the dramatic culmination that the crucifixion and resurrection would bring, the movement does not spread in the same way. Here is the deep paradox at the heart of this story. The crucifixion, the very thing you ordered, became the central event of the world's largest religion. 2 billion Christians today trace their faith to that moment. If you save Jesus, does Christianity exist at all? Does it exist in the same form? Does the message of Jesus of Nazareth reach Rome and Europe and Africa and the Americas? Or does it remain a regional movement that fades with time? We cannot answer that. Nobody can. But we can say this: your decision, the one you tried to avoid, the one you tried to wash off your hands, may have changed the entire trajectory of human civilization. Not just religion, civilization. The calendar we use, the laws that govern most of the world, the art and literature of 1,000 years, all of it shaped, at least in part, by what happened on that hill outside Jerusalem because you could not find the courage to do what you knew was right. Let us consider another possibility. Maybe releasing Jesus would not have changed the destination of history as much as we imagine. Maybe it would only have changed the road that led there. If you had released Jesus that morning, the first man whose life would have changed was not Jesus. It was you. Because the moment you said no to the priests, you would have forced the mask off everyone in that courtyard. The priests could no longer pretend this was about law. The crowd could no longer pretend this was about justice. And you could no longer pretend you were powerless. That is what makes the question so uncomfortable. If you had released Jesus, you would not simply have spared one innocent man. You would have exposed the entire moment for what it truly was, a collision between conscience and power. Would the priests have stopped? Almost certainly not. They had too much to lose. A teacher they could not control, a crowd they could not fully contain, a message that kept slipping past their authority. None of that disappears because one governor shows courage for one morning. They would regroup. They would wait. They would search for another accusation, another arrest, another chance. And Rome? Rome would remember. You were already a governor with a damaged reputation. If you openly defied the chief priests in a city swollen with Passover tension and unrest followed, Rome would not reward you for moral clarity. Rome would ask whether you had kept order. Nothing more. So perhaps this is the real alternate history. Not a world without crucifixion forever, not a world where every consequence vanishes, but a world in which you finally act like the authority you actually are, and pay for it. Maybe Jesus is released that day and arrested again months later. Maybe he escapes that confrontation only to face another one. Maybe the cross still comes, just not in that courtyard, not on that timetable, not by that exact decision. And if that is true, then the question changes. The question is no longer whether you could have rewritten all of history. The question becomes whether you could have refused to stain your own hands with it. That is a smaller question than changing the world. But in some ways, it is a more terrifying one. Because most of us will never be asked to reshape civilization. But many of us will be asked at some point whether we will participate in something we know is wrong. And that may be the most haunting possibility of all. If you had released Jesus, maybe the world would still have turned toward the same great mysteries, the same suffering, the same redemption, the same clash between earthly power and a kingdom not of this world. But you would have been different. Your name might not have been immortalized as the man who condemned the innocent. You might have lost your office sooner. You might have angered Rome. You might have paid dearly.
But there is a strange possibility that in losing everything political, you might have saved the one thing that mattered most: yourself. Because that is your tragedy. Not simply that you chose wrongly, but that you chose survival and still did not keep what you were trying to save. You tried to protect your position, and history swallowed it. You tried to protect your future, and that future disappeared into silence. You tried to avoid risk, and became one of the most infamous names in human memory. So maybe the alternate history is not that the world is saved by your courage. Maybe it is that you are saved from becoming the Pilate history remembers. You are Pilate, and now the question becomes even sharper. Was the real cost of that morning the death of one man? Or was it the death of the man you still might have been, if only you had found the courage to say no?
If this series made you think, leave a comment. Tell me what you would have done, because I genuinely believe there is no wrong answer, only honest ones.